All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, as always, I like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash, double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations to you, sincere, hopeful elect Akim, pushing the word of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, in spirit and in truth. I Rabbi, a lot, that is to say, 144,000 in the Lashman Kodash, which is what we are striving to be a part of. So, in this lesson, I'm going to entitle this lesson, Bloody Hands and War Crimes. And I'm going to use a story out of the scriptures to pretty much go into, the topic. Now, this week, we did a live lesson, the brother Tabawa'a and myself. On Monday, we did a live lesson in which we talked about the International Criminal Court, the ICC, which is supposed to pretty much bring to justice criminals at the highest level, around the world. All right. In which they don't do that. All right. Now, when you look at the war crimes of American history, all right, more recently, the situation with Gaza and the Palestinians, Benjamin Netanyahu is guilty of war crimes. Donald Trump is guilty of war crimes, being that he's blown up those Venezuelan fishermen, all right, those fishing boats, without any due process, all right, deporting so-called illegals to be tortured down there in El Salvador in that prison without any due process. Those are war crimes, okay? Well, we're going to get an example of a war crime here in the scriptures that was handled, that was taken care of, all right? Now, once again, war crime, bloody hands and war crimes, all right? So this is starting in 1 Kings 2, and I'm going to read this in the NLT. All right, so 1 Kings 2 and verse 5, it says, and there is something else, or actually, let me see. Let me start at 1. It says, David's final instructions to Solomon. All right, so King David, these were his final instructions to King Solomon. Okay, it says, as the time of King David's death approached, he gave this charge to his son Solomon. I'm going to where everyone on earth must someday go. Take courage and be a man. Observe the requirements of the Lord, Yahweh, your power, and follow all his ways. Keep the decrees, commands, regulations, and laws written in the law of Moses so that you will be successful in all you do and wherever you go. If you do this, then the Lord Yahweh will keep the promise he made to me. He told me, if your descendants live as they should and follow me faithfully with all their heart and soul, one of them will always sit on the throne of Israel. Okay? So we're going to get back into that in the kingdom of heaven. All right? We're in captivity, so it's obvious that, we didn't, follow in those traditions, okay, to have a king always sitting on the throne of David, all right? Verse 5, this is the point. It says, NLT, verse 5, it says, and there is something else. You know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me when he murdered my 2 army commanders, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether. Okay? So 2 of King David's army generals, or commanders, were murdered by Joab. Okay? It says he pretended that it was an act of war but it was done in a time of peace. All right, now you have those, despite there being a so-called ceasefire, those Israelis, all right, those Amalekites from the tribe of Esau Edom, or the nation of Esau Edom, should I say, Salakia, the tribe of Amalek from the nation of Esau Edom, so-called small hats, the tiny tops, despite them agreeing to a ceasefire, okay, you still have hostile acts and murders that they still carry out, which makes that a war crime. All right, amongst other things. But when it's a time of peace, okay, it's supposed to be a ceasing of shedding blood. All right. Now that was what we are reading here. Joab tried to play it off like, oh, it was during a time of war that, you know, he killed those two commanders, but King David clearly states that, but it was done in a time of peace, staining his belt and sandals with innocent blood. All right, so Joab, you know, pretty much got his hands bloody. Okay, he got his hands bloody, and that blood was required. All right, so let me jump down to verse 19. All right, it says all right, it says, so Bathsheba went to King Solomon. All right, now when you read up in the story, it goes into Adonijah, which is King Solomon's brother, pretty much asking for Abishag, which was a young woman, all right, a young woman of marriageable age, and Apostle Tahar just went into this last week. You know, she could have been 12, 13, 14, all right, she was real young, she was a virgin, and she was of the tribe of Issachar, and that's who, you know, they had pretty much picked out of, you know, the fair virgins in the nation of Israel to see if King David was gonna pretty much pop her, okay, because he was in old age, he was sick, and you know, as the scripture says, being that King David didn't, you know, go in unto her, that let them know that he was ready to give up the ghost. But anyways, you have Adonijah, which had asked Bathsheba, which is King Solomon's mother, if he can marry her. All right, Abishag. Okay, so that's where we're picking up at, verse 19 in the NLT, 1 Kings 2. It says, so Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak on Adonijah's behalf. The king rose from his throne to meet her, and he bowed down before her. When he sat down on his throne again, the king ordered that a throne be brought for his mother, and she sat at his right hand. I have one small request to make of you, she said. I hope you won't turn me down. What is it, my mother? He asked. You know I won't refuse you. Then let your brother Adonijah marry Abishag, the girl from Shunem, she replied. All right, so this was King Solomon's reply. It says, how can you possibly ask me to give Abishag to Adonijah? King Solomon demanded. You might as well ask me to give him the kingdom. You know that he is my older brother, and that he has Abiathar the priest and Joab, son of Zeruiah, on his side. Okay, so King Solomon, being a very wise king, the wisest king to ever live, the wisest Israelite to ever live, you know, outside of Yahweh Shai, but they are the same person. All right, for those that can receive it, you know, he already knew what was up. Okay, so he, you know, he made a play. All right, Adonijah was trying to make a play, and you know, just like chess, King Solomon checkmated him. All right. And it's going to get into it. Verse 23, it says, then King Solomon made a vow before the Lord Yahweh. Matter of fact, hold on just a second. Let me go up here to let me see something. Okay, verse 6. Let me jump back into verse 6. 1 Kings 2:6. Going back into Joab, right? It says, do with him what you think best, but don't let him go down, or don't let him grow old, and do with him what you think best, but don't let him grow old and go to his grave in peace. Okay. So that was what King David, instructed Solomon. All right, don't let Joab get old. Don't let him go down to the grave in peace. And do what you take care of that for me. However the spirit hops on you to take care of it, handle that. Okay. So this is how King Solomon is going to handle it. All right. And he handled it through Adonijah. All right. Through judgment on Adonijah. Okay. Which pretty much rolled over into judgment on Joab. Okay. So back in verse 22. 23, it says 1 Kings 2:23, it says, then King Solomon made a vow before Yahweh, may the Most High strike me and even kill me if Adonijah has not sealed his fate with this request. Okay. Yahweh has confirmed me and placed me on the throne of my father, David. He has established my dynasty as he promised. So as surely as the Lord Yahweh lives, Adonijah will die this very day. Okay. So because of what Adonijah had asked and requested, all right, trying to use, when you read up in the story, trying to use Bathsheba, which is King Solomon's mother, as if King Solomon was going to be weakened and grant his request to marry Abishag. King Solomon was like, okay, this dude, he just pretty much signed his death certificate. All right. Verse 25. It says, so King Solomon ordered Benaniah, son of Jehoiada, to execute him, and Adonijah was put to death. Okay. Then the king said to Abiathar, all right, so Adonijah was put to death. All right, take note of that. Then the king said to Abiathar, the priest, go back to your home in Anathoth. You deserve to die, but I will not kill you now because you carried the ark of the sovereign Yahweh for David my father, and you shared all his hardships. Okay, so this priest, which sided with Adonijah, was part of that council. He deserved to die too, but King Solomon, being a righteous king, all right, understanding judgment, mercy, and faith, which is what Yahweh Shai had stated, the weightier matters of the law, okay, was like, hey, look, I ain't going to kill you now. Just go back home. All right, go back to where you came from. All right, being that you carried the ark of Yahweh Bashem outside the sovereign Lord, okay, during King David's hardships, okay. Verse 27, it says, so Solomon deposed Abiathar from his position as priest of Yahweh, thereby fulfilling the prophecy the Lord Yahweh had given at Shiloh concerning the descendants of Eli, okay, because Abiathar came from the line of Eli. All right. Verse 28 says, Joab had not joined Absalom's earlier rebellion. Okay, because you did have Absalom rebel against King David, but Joab, he hadn't joined that rebellion. Okay. It says, but he had joined Adonijah's rebellion. So you did have Joab, which killed the two commanders in King David's military. He did join, Adonijah's rebellion. So when Joab heard about Adonijah's death, he ran to the sacred tent of Yahweh and grabbed on the horns of the altar. So this is where his judgment comes into play. So him hearing about Adonijah getting put to death, he tweaks out because he realizes, damn, judgment's going to come to him, being that he was part of that council, all right, with Adonijah in that rebellion. All right. It says, and he knew, that what he did in killing those two commanders was wicked. Okay. So verse 29, it says, when this was reported to King Solomon, he sent Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, to execute him. Benaiah went to the sacred tent of Yahweh and said to Joab, the king orders you to come out. But Joab answered, no, I will die here. So Benaiah returned to the king and told him what Joab had said. Do as he said, the king replied, kill him there beside the altar and bury him. This will remove the guilt of Joab's senseless murders from me and from my father's family. Okay. So King Solomon said, all right, shit, kill him there. and then bury his ass. Okay, because what that's going to do is that's going to remove the guilt of Joab's senseless murders from King Solomon and the family. All right, the King David's family. Okay. So verse 32, it says, the Lord will repay him for the murders of the two men who were more righteous and better than he. For my father knew nothing about the deaths of Abner, son of Ner, commander of the army of Israel, and of Amasa, son of Jether, commander of the army of Judah. All right, so you had, the commanders of both the northern and the southern kingdom that were killed by Joab. Okay. It says, may their blood be on Joab and his descendants forever. All right, so his family is cursed to this day. All right. And may the Lord Yahweh grant peace forever to David, his descendants, his dynasty, and his throne. So Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, returned to the sacred tent and killed Joab, and he was buried at his home in the wilderness. Okay. Then the king appointed Benaiah to command the army in place of Joab, and he installed Zadok the priest to take the place of Abiathar. All right, so everybody that was part of that council, that wicked council of Adonijah, okay, Joab and Abiathar, they were all replaced. All right, with righteous men. Now, real quick, getting into Benaiah. All right, because that was a spirit created for vengeance, man. You got certain men in the scriptures who, in righteousness had to lay people down, send people back to the spirit world. And there's certain spirits that the Lord created for that purpose. Okay, just ain't emotional. And do what they got to do. All right. Coming from, righteous orders sanctioned by Yahweh Shem Yahweh in righteousness on the right hand side. Okay. And really the elect is going to be on that level. When the Lord gives us the green light, Abaratazah, we be of that number. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of bloodshed. All right, at the request of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. You know, we are gonna be those sharp threshing instruments, man. Okay. So this is Sirach 39 and 28. It says, there be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In a time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. All right, so the wrath of Yahweh Shem Shai, of Yahweh, was appeased when that blood was shed, okay, in particular of Joab, because of what he did to the two commanders. Okay, so this is Numbers 35 and 33. It says, and I'm gonna read it in NLT. It says, this will ensure that the land where you live will not be polluted, for murder pollutes the land. All right, and what did Joab do? He murdered two men that were righteous and innocent, or well, actually not innocent, because whoever perished being innocent, as the scriptures say. All right. But here in the NLT, it says that righteous and better than he. Okay. So it says Numbers 35:33. It says, this will ensure that the land where you live will not be polluted, for murder pollutes the land, and no sacrifice except the execution of the murderer can purify the land from murder. All right, so this land, America, fast forward into today, has to be purified, despite it becoming a desert. All right, its end result is going to be a vast desert. The blood that was shed here still has to be purified, has to be cleansed. So the way that's going to happen is by way of the Most High sacrificing all these proverbial goats, being Edomites, here in America. Okay, and along with, the rebellious, murderous niggas, all right, the Israelites, because niggas is wicked, on the level of Esau, man, have become more wicked than the wicked, as the scriptures say. All right, so you got a lot of murderous ass demons amongst Israel here in Babylon that the Lord is going to lead to pretty much be part of that sacrifice to cleanse this land, all right, in preparation for it being the biggest desert on planet Earth. Okay, but in order to cleanse the land, all right, the murderer has to be put to death. And that was what happened with Joab. All right, so verse 34 says, you must not defile the land where you live, for I live there myself. I am Yahweh who lives among the people of Israel. All right, which is why ain't gonna be no murderous niggas in the kingdom of heaven, because the presence of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is gonna be amongst us. All right, as the scriptures say, that the Most High is gonna dwell with us. All right, real quick, let me see. Let's see, what is that? Bear with me 1 second. Revelation 21 and 3, it says, and I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of the Most High is with men. Okay, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and the Most High himself shall be with them and be their power. Okay, so the Most High is going to dwell amongst us in the kingdom of heaven. All right, and the reason why that's going to be is because there ain't going to be no wickedness found in Israel. All right, in the NLT it says, I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, the Most High's home is now among his people, not everybody. All right? This is not including actual heathens. This is Israelites. All right? He will live with them, and they will be his people. The Most High himself will be with them. So that's what we as Israelites have to look forward to. Okay? But the point being, bloody hands and war crimes. All right? And Joab is an example of bloody hands and war crimes that he had to pay for with his life. All right. So, what do you think the Lord is going to do with these, monumental war crimes, being carried out and orchestrated by Esau Edom? All right. So, Abaratazah, this was edifying. Till next time, Shalom.